No access to dye sublimation? No problem. You can achieve beautiful fursuit eyes without. And in this tutorial, I'll show you how. First, clean your workspace. Wet paint is sticky and you don't want fuzzy eyeballs. Next, select a mesh and cut a rectangle that is large enough for both eyes. I like to use UV protective window mesh. I've had this single roll for years and I still haven't used half of it. Secure your mesh. Taping your mesh to a stiff piece of material like cardboard will prevent wiggling and warping, allowing you to paint evenly. If your eyes will have a pupil, I suggest making a template. You can make a template out of a piece of cardboard, but if you have an expired credit card around or hotel room key, this is perfect for that purpose. Cut your pupil and then hot glue a piece of EVA foam to it. Now you have a tool perfect for making consistent pupils. I will be painting mesh for 3D eyes in this tutorial, but this method works for 2D eyes as well. First, I start by tracing my 3D eyes so I know that I have enough space to paint both eyes. Next, apply a base layer of white paint. By using the tool we made earlier, we can ensure that the pupils will remain dark, saving us the step of having to repaint them later. I like to use a scrap piece of foam when applying this base layer of paint. Use light pats. A lot of pressure will end up clogging our mesh. This second example is a pair of eyes that will have a light colored pupil, so I'm not using the pupil stencil. Once again, light pats. We only want to dust the surface of our mesh, so don't load up your scrap foam with too much paint. Once that first layer of paint has dried, you can apply a second coat of paint if you're going to be using a light color, or if you want that final eye to really pop. Next, mix a light and a dark shade of your eye color. I like to use a palette knife when mixing my paint, but you can use a scrap piece of cardboard. I try to avoid using super saturated colors, so I rarely use the paint directly out of a bottle. I'm just using regular acrylic paints here. Acrylic paints come in matte and satin. You can use whichever you prefer. This piece of cardboard is the one that I used earlier when applying my base color of paint. I don't want to let any of that paint go to waste. Next, we apply the paint with the same method we used earlier. Light paint on the bottom, dark paint on the top. If you look at a real eyeball, the top will often be darker because of the shadow cast by the eyelid. I personally don't use a stencil on this stage because I like the look of a pupil with a light coat of paint on it. If you want a pupil that is really black, use your stencil again. These eyes will have a light colored pupil, so I paint the general area where the pupil will be first, and then place the stencil on top to protect that area. If your stencil is thick, or you're unable to get a clean pupil shape, you can go in and clean up the edges with a paintbrush. This gradient is a perfectly fine place to stop painting, but if you want more details, it's time to pick up a paintbrush. I like to keep a spare eye blank around to check my painting as I go. These purple eyes will have a black sclera, and I only have one set to work with. I don't want to accidentally smudge paint all over them. If you want a smooth, painterly look, apply wet paint to wet paint. If you want sharp details, however, wait for things to dry before painting them on. Don't load your brush with too much paint. Like the scrap foam we used earlier, we only want enough paint to leave a visible detail on the surface without clogging our mesh. Fursuit heads, and therefore their eyes, are one of the most unique parts of a fursuit. If you want to be a recognizable fursuit maker, you need to find your unique style. More details, less details, hyper-realistic, maybe cartoony. Paint a pair of eyes, then paint another pair of eyes, and another, until you find the perfect eye for your fursuit making style. I really suggest not trying to copy another maker directly. Once your eye's dry, check the back. A few small specks of leaked paint is totally okay and nothing to worry about. If you have a large amount of leakage though, go in with a brush and apply a black layer on top. A solid black background is essential for good vision, so if you have a large amount of leakage, you want to cover that up. And finally, apply a top coat to the front and back. You can use matte, satin, or gloss, depending on your desired look. Do this outside. I sprayed this inside so I could get footage for this tutorial. I'm able to do this because I live alone, I don't have pets, and I was able to leave my apartment for hours while it aired out. Don't harm your health for a fursuit, y'all, please. And that's it. Beautiful hand-painted fursuit eyes. Thanks for watching.